So, Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, yeah, I grew up in rural Iowa. I'm one of five, three sisters and a brother. I suppose at some level I always knew that I was different, but to me it was the norm and I didn't know anything else. I just, was who I was. Now, that didn't mean it didn't come with difficulties. Like at some point, in my junior high age, it's like, I was identified, as from my friend group and the other boys in school, they had decided that I was the gay kid, I was the fag, I was the kid that they weren't gonna hang out with anymore and didn't want to have part of their social group. And I didn't even know what that word meant. And when I really look back on it, it's like I'm pretty sure I had to ask somebody like, well, what does that mean? But also, it's like I didn't even know how they knew that, that there
Hmm.
was that people were gay,
Hmm.
that some men liked men. It's like I don't know how other uh, people in my small town knew that because I didn't know that. Yes, I watched The Love Boat and I wasn't interested in looking at the pretty women, but I certainly loved when there was a pool shot of a nice looking man. But I don't have this defining moment. It's like so many gay men of my generation are like, oh, and from the part of the country I'm at, we'll say it's like, oh, well, the Dukes of Hazzard or Tom Selleck in Magnum
Yes,
PI or
yeah.
something like that. And I don't have one of those like defining moments. To me, it was a journey. And did I know I was different? Sure, but I was who I was, and until other people started pointing it out, I didn't realize that that was a problem.
And I think, Steve, you were telling me that you lost all your friends because you were, in their mind, gay, a faggot, whatever.
Yeah,
And you lost your friends, and even and through junior high and even into high school, you lost these friends that didn't want to hang out with you because they, in their mind, assumed you were gay.
I had a great friend in high school. His name was Kurt, and and him and I hung out a lot, and did normal things like anybody did in rural Iowa. Did a lot of beer drinking and going out on the weekends and beer drinking, and we're both involved in uh, chorus and show choir in school, but also had like other outside interests. Like he was a wrestler, and we're really good friends. I do remember he decided he hated me and wanted nothing to do with me. And then one night I was walking home to the town square park, and uh, he found me. He came up and he beat the crap out of me. He's like broke my glasses. I was a scrawny little kid. He was more of a beefy farm guy that was on the wrestling team and stuff like that. And there were many boys in the camp that I was never friends with that if I walked down the hall would say fag or, all these
Mhm.
things. But it's like he wasn't in that camp. He was, he was also in chorus and show choir and swing choir and stuff with me. It's like we were
Mhm.
friends. If I remember right, it was very hurtful, but I didn't spend a lot of time like, diving into my feelings and all of these things. It's like, I remember my parents were incredibly upset because I just got a new pair of glasses and they were broken and they were expensive and they should have been upset and they wanted his parents to pay for them and things like this. But years later, right? So I'm living in New York City at this point. Social media becomes a thing. I was like late to Facebook very intentionally, but I got on Facebook and started connecting with all these, a lot of people I went to high school with. And Kurt and I connected on Facebook. And then he reached out and we had a private conversation where he shared with me several things that it's like, first of all, he had come out at some point and wanted to apologize for that night and how that happened, and he always felt bad about that. And in hindsight, he could look at it, and I'm not trying to speak for him, that he could look at it as it's like there was a lot of tension between us that neither of us understood. I mean, like physical attraction, probably chemical, a lot of chemical things going on that neither one of us understood, or both of us knew this wasn't something that was supposed to be happening with another boy. You
And
know,
I'm going to share something here because obviously Kurt had incredible homophobia, and he knew he was different, wasn't accepted by his family. He hated who he was in a sense. That would be my take. And the only way he knew to do with it is rather than deal with who he was putting his hurt and shame of himself on top of you. And I think that's where it ended up.
I think we can look at it that way in a very enlightened way all these years later. What I can say is like, two rural Iowa teenage boys, it's like I wasn't a fighter and I wasn't somebody who was physical. I never was, but that also wasn't necessarily an uncommon way of dealing with conflict.
It's sad because when somebody doesn't deal with who they are, as I've said on my podcast previously, they'll usually end up in addicting on something to deal with the pain. He has now dealt with, and I'm very proud he's sober, but he's been using drugs and addicting to drugs. And that's how he dealt with it. And that, what is encouraging is he's now in remission right now.
The fear and shame of being gay. And that's just an experience that every gay man goes through. It's like stage one of being a gay man is fear and shame, and everyone deals with it differently. It's like what I did was it's like I kind of dove into a career and had a very successful path. It was very driven that way. But I've known a lot of gay men who also it's like their fear and shame drove them into like a different world. I did my fair share of drinking, but I was never addicted. Yeah, so I went to Iowa State. I studied fashion merchandising kind of early on. I really found it's like what I was really, really good at and had this talent for. So, you know, post Iowa State, it's like, I dove into a career that had already pretty much, been fairly established. My career took me all around the Midwest. I ended up at Macy's Merchandising Group in Manhattan, which is the private brand division of Macy's, responsible for designing, manufacturing, and marketing all private brands sold at Macy's. My career and my talents and my ability to accept what came for me, and then also like power through the very difficult times, the layoffs, the did pay off in that way. So that was really cool, and that all kind of wrapped up in 2016 when online became so much more of a
Yes.
something that every corporation had to deal with in a major way.
I want to know a little bit about bursting through. Steve's created a website for heterosexual allies in our community. We all need allies in our community. We cannot accomplish what we do without allies.
Yeah, Bursting Through is the social change storytelling movement for allies in the queer community. And Bursting Through's ultimate mission is sustainable safety and equality for the queer community. At the end of the day, when we talk about allies in the queer community, allies and the queer community, we are the majority. If we're the majority, why are our voices not being heard? And why is just blatant lies about the queer community and hate directed towards the queer community so much more visible and so much more active? One of the ways Bursting Through has answered that is because hate is organized and has been grassroots, for a long time. And I published something in November that talked about this, that in 2016, there were 11 LGBTQ hate groups in the country that raised about $87 million. In 2020, there are 50 some, and they raised over $100 million a year. That's a huge part of why Bursting Through exists. Hate is organized at a grassroots level. And what we tend to do, more enlightened people or people who are allies or lead with love more than hate, what we tend to do is believe that silent love and silent support and just being a good person is going to get us the results that we want to, because a lot of us,
but it does not have a voice.
but it doesn't, and a lot,
it doesn't have a voice.
That's kind of the way society has shaped that too. It's like, well, if you're a good person, good will win. Love always wins. Love over hate. What Bursting Through is saying is thank you for the love and support. That is fantastic. Love and support plus action is what we need. But also too, it's like we tend to, and when I say we, allies in the queer community, we tend to lean into thinking that these larger, well-organized or well-established organizations are going to do this work. Meaning, like HRC and all these places like that, and GLAD and all these pride organizations and all these centers that are doing this amazing work for the community. And I'm not saying they're not doing amazing work, but they're up here fighting, on a very big stage. And you know what? Hate has been down here building at a grassroots level. And what they did was they took over all these school boards and they got book bans and they've got all of these things that are happening, needs to be counteracted at a grassroots level. And that's where bursting through comes in,
I want to
right?
share something with you because I have many allied friends in the community here, and they understand the struggles that the queer community goes through. But many of them don't know what to do. How
Yeah.
can I have a voice? And I think this is what's so incredible about Bursting Through's website. You've given a website for the allies. And I want to read a letter. This is written by Steve. I am a gay man, identify as gay, and use the word queer when talking about my community because it is the most inclusive word. I strongly believe the queer community has more allies than not. Not there are some more good people and bad, that there are more good people and bad. But right now, the bad people are better organized and louder. If you're a straight ally to the queer community, it's time for you to come out. You're either actively homophobic, passively homophobic, or fighting homophobia. It's not incredibly complex, and the choice is yours.
Yeah.
Such a powerful comment. I think that really encompasses why Bursting Through came out.
Yeah.
I think that really encompasses it.
It's still very, very true. And that's the reason that bursting through exists. Now, what was so powerful about when that piece published, and again, this was when bursting through his first coming onto the scene, and so it's like, this is what I believe, this is what I believe, and this is why I've created this company, and this is why I've created this movement, and this is all these things. And when that piece got published, I did have people reach out to me, right, and say, wow, I identify as an ally. You're absolutely right. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Well, what do I do then? And I had people saying, a lot of educators reach out saying, it's like, I'm a teacher. What do I do? I can't, it's like, I'm not in the business of wanting to lose my job, and I'm not trying to fight the school board or the president, but I also want people to know, and kids to know, that I'm a safe place for them, and not just queer kids. I mean, we live in a world now where it's like, there could be an elementary school kid that is being raised by same-sex parents.
Mhm.
So the hate isn't just about the kid that might be discovering that they are not heterosexual. There's also heterosexual kids sitting in a classroom who not only just maybe have a gay relative, but it's like their dads or moms might be.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What Bursting Through followed it up with was 10 easy activisms. And easy activisms are just living your lives and your values every single day of your life. It's about deconstructing the word activism to make it too difficult. It's putting action to your values. If you do support and love, the queer community, somebody who's LGBTQ, then you act like that every day, not just when you vote, right? It's like, and acting like it every day is really simple. It's a matter of like, knowing where to spend your money. And it's not that complicated to know. It's well documented that Chick-fil-A in the past given a lot of money to anti-LGBTQ politicians, and with the express intent of having anti-queer legislation passed. Now, if you live in a community, if you live in a city that's big enough to have a Chick-fil-A, they're going to have other chicken fast food options. So
Hmm.
choose that.
Hmm.
Home Depot gives a lot of money to anti-queer legislation. If you have a choice between Home Depot and Lowe's, go to Lowe's. If you have a choice between Hobby Lobby and Michael's, go to Michael's. These are simple, easy activism ways. People making a choice about where they spend their money is not cancel culture. That's just living your values. Cancel culture is, a protest or a boycott. Nobody's saying that. And again, it's like, you need to make the choices that you need to make as an ally, but you need to be informed. So I encourage you to go to the website if you want to learn about bursting through. But if you want to be an active ally and you want to be part of this conversation and the different conversation that Bursting Through is having, Substack is a platform that's designed for us to be able to be interactive together and are able to share our stories in a safe online community. And Bursting Through is not a political organization. It's a storytelling movement. Do we talk about politics and the laws and stuff? Sometimes I have to, because we've decided in this country that my rights are tied to legislation. So sometimes we have to talk about that.
Mhm.
But most of the time, we're talking about our shared humanity and our differences and how do we create the society we want to live in. And that will bubble up to the
Right, right.
rest, you know.
One of the things I want to share with is this idea of a voice for the allies, the heterosexual allies. There's lots of things they can do to have a voice. There's certain organizations that I've interviewed, Trevor Project for the teens that are struggling right now, Outright International. Another one is the Sage Group, of course, P Flag. There's so many groups that heterosexual allies can go to be able to have a voice for the community and give support to the community. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you establishing this website, Bursting Through. And thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for being a podcast. And congratulations for doing work for the heterosexual allies of our community.
I am honored to be included in the Courage to be Courageous world.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Steve. It's been my pleasure.
All
Take
right.
care, my
Take
friend.
care.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye now.